Knoxville. It was the scene of another big recruiting weekend. Josh Heupel and his staff, they hosted a bunch of prospects over the weekend. We're going to break down a few, but first, Steve, we got to start with the biggest man on campus. Number one offensive tackle, David Sanders, was back in Knoxville. How did it go?
David Sanders, not to be confused with Davis Sanders,
Hey.
he might be a 5'10", 147-pound defensive back from Indianapolis. But in all seriousness, stuff like that can't factor into a recruitment. Someone making name badges that has literally nothing to do with your player development, your strength and conditioning development, the coaching that you're going to get, the players in the locker room. I know a lot has been made of that, and schools that are also in the mix are going to try and play that up as recruiting is a game of inches. But David Sanders and his family, they've been in Knoxville several times throughout this process. This was his fourth visit of the year. And I think he just enjoys being around Tennessee's commits, guys like George McIntyre. I think he enjoys being around Tennessee's players. It was a big recruiting weekend, but I think that the Sanders family could sense just how much of a priority Coach Heupel and company are making him to this recruiting class. Glenn Ellerby, offensive line coach, the way he was able to develop Darnell Wright is enticing into a top 10 pick. So Tennessee, I still have them on the short list. He's at Ohio State this weekend. Certainly Georgia's always been one of the front runners. Clemson, Alabama, Nebraska, South Carolina, some of the other schools that David Sanders has shown a lot of strong interest in. They're in the thick of it as well. But Georgia, Tennessee, Ohio State are three that I know are in high standing. Big visit to Ohio State this coming weekend. And then his recruitment end of July into August. So there will still be a lot of conversations with these coaches, a lot of dotting I's, crossing T's, a lot of pros and cons, a lot of discussion as David Sanders and his family aim to make the best decision for him. They've been so thorough with this process. They've taken so many visits. They've turned over every rock. They've gotten to know players, off-field support staff, coaches, and Tennessee has definitely done a great job this year. He's been able to attend class at Tennessee, a day in the life of a player. He went to the 8-6 Live event, got to hang out with the Tennessee coaching staff in an environment that allowed them to see the personalities of those Tennessee coaches in a not a very football oriented atmosphere. So really good visit. I think Tennessee's one of the front runners this weekend. Was another opportunity for them to show how much they love him, and I think they felt that love.
All right, David Sanders, however you spell it, Tennessee is going to be in this one until the very end. Let's talk about a couple flip targets that were on campus. Isaiah Gibson, who's committed to USC. Jaden Perlotti, who is committed to Georgia. Gibson is an edge. Perlotti's a linebacker. How do you think Tennessee did, and who do they have a better shot at flipping out of these two?
Well, I think right now you would say Jaden Perlotti. I think they're the hot team right now. Our colleague Chad Simmons reported as much this weekend. I talked to some sources that spent time with Jaden over the weekend that have confirmed that report. But Jaden Perlotti's been committed to Georgia since 2022, and there's been a lot of sexy teams in that one, from Auburn to Florida State to now Tennessee. He's going to be back in Athens this weekend. So we'll see if Tennessee can ultimately be the one that does flip Jaden Perlotti. There's a lot of buzz around that right now. Alabama's another school that's been in the thick of that one. With Isaiah Gibson, look, there's some schools that are obviously viewing him as a program changer. And I think for Tennessee, as they try and gain ground on Georgia and Alabama, and what I mean by that is being a team that can ultimately win the SEC. Tennessee, they've been right there. When you're trimming strokes in your golf game and you're going from 100 to 90, 90 to 80, those are the easy strokes to trim. Tennessee is now shooting below par. So it's hard to trim these extra strokes to win a championship. But Isaiah Gibson's that caliber of player. And so I think that, showing him the way they've been able to develop their players, the way the program is developed, but also having just the investment around the program. Those are things that are exciting for Isaiah Gibson. I think ultimately we think he will not stick with USC. My RPM's currently on Georgia. I think Georgia has been able to show Isaiah Gibson how they've been able to produce players. It's at a better rate than anyone in college football. And you look at the NFL draft and the way that they've been winning. But Tennessee has certainly become a dark horse in this recruitment. And I think people that spent time with Isaiah Gibson feel like they're going to be in it as he takes his recruitment into the fall.
All right. Now, Isaiah Gibson wasn't the only elite edge on campus, but he is committed to another program. Now, there were 3 elite edges that are not committed anywhere. Damian Shaklin, Zion Grady, and Jared Smith, they all took official visits to Tennessee this weekend. Heading into the weekend, I probably wouldn't peg Tennessee as a leader for any of the 3, but who do you think they made a move on this weekend?
Well, Zion Grady said it was his best visit so far, and that was after trips to Miami, Florida State, and Auburn. I would give Florida State the edge coming in. But he said Coach Gardner has one of the best resumes in college football. He wants to play in the NFL and has a great track record of doing that. He's been at Tennessee a couple times this summer now, so I wouldn't sleep on the Vols there. Damian Shanklin's another I wouldn't sleep on the Vols for, in addition to just Coach Garner and that track record of development, which he certainly highlighted. He also talked about Coach Banks. We know Coach Chop, Lavorne Harbin, who's one of the best off-field recruiters in the country. He's in the middle of that one for Damian Shanklin. So while my RPM's on LSU, and while he had a good visit to Ohio State last weekend, I think that Tennessee certainly showed him an opportunity to be successful in Knoxville as well. So it was a good visit. I still like South Carolina for Jared Smith, although I think it is noteworthy to point out that he too just talked about the atmosphere that the players or that the Tennessee coaches created. He said the culture I felt this weekend was like no other. So I just want to give some insight to the environment that Coach Heupel and his staff are creating. These recruits get on campus and they feel like it's a special place playing for coaches that really care about them.
All right, Tennessee fans, talk to us. How do you feel about the big weekend? David Sanders in town, Damian Shaklin, Zion Grady, Isaiah Gibson. How we feeling? Let us know. Comment section below.